So if parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then corresponding angles are congruent. We just talked about that. If parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then pairs of alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate exterior are congruent. And consecutive interior are supplementary. Going based off what we learned yesterday. This only happens if you have parallel lines cut by transversal, which is what those little notches mean on the lines there, those triangles. So we're going to start going through these proofs. So it says that A is parallel to B. That's given to you because of the picture and the notches that you see. So we write given for the first part. And then you are allowed to say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 because of the corresponding angles theorem. And it's okay with me if you abbreviate like COR, C-O-R-R. You'll see me put THM for theorem because I don't want to write out the whole thing. So for the next one, A is parallel to B because that's given. Why are we allowed then to say that 3 is congruent to 4? Yeah. So we can say A theorem. Because alternate interior angles are congruent when you have parallel lines. And so, Brooke, what can I say is true? So 5 and 6 are congruent because why?
Because of the alternate
Alternate exterior angles and parallel lines. So we have congruent angles. And then the last one has a couple steps, 3. You're given, again, that they are parallel. You can say that angles 7 and 8 are supplementary because the CIA theorem. Now that sounds cool, right? Consecutive interior angles are supplementary. And if you know 2 things are supplementary, can someone raise your hand and tell me immediately what are you allowed to say? Yeah. They add up to 180 because of, how come? Definition of supplementary. So if measure of angle 2 is 113 degrees, what's the measure of angle 6? Brandon, what's the measure of angle 6?
113.
How do you know it's 113? What kind of angle pair is that?
Corresponding angles.
Corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are? Congruent. That means that they're both going to be 113. If measure of angle 4 is 100, what's the measure of angle 6, Liz? Yeah, so alternate interior congruent, so measure of angle 6 would have to be 100 because they're alternate interior angles. Measure of angle 1 is 84. What's the measure of angle 3 going to be, Olivia?
84.
How come?
Vertical.
Yes, vertical angles. And vertical angles we know. We talked about last unit. They are congruent. Number 4, Sophia, if the measure of angle 7 is 75, what's the measure of angle 1?
75.
How come it's 75? Right. A, E, A. Alternate exterior angles are congruent if you have parallel lines. Sam, if measure of angle 3 is 81, what's the measure of angle 4?
99.
How do you know it's 99?
Linear pair opposite.
Right, so these are a linear pair. Linear pair. And lastly, if measure of angle 6 is 111, What is the measure of angle 3?
69 degrees.
Right. And how come?
Because of the, of course, consecutive interior angles.
Right. Consecutive interior are supplementary, so they add to 180. You can go ahead and label that measure of angle 1 is 75. You could label it on the picture if you want, and label it over here. I need you to find all the other angle measures. If I were you, I would start with the vertical angle, right? Because you know those are congruent. So since 1 and 7 are vertical, those are congruent. 7 is corresponding to 5, so those are congruent. 5 is congruent to 3 because of their vertical angles. So all of these 4 are 75. And then you've just got 1, 2, 3, 4 linear pairs, which are supplementary. So what are the other angle measures going to be? 105. Because you subtract from 180. So besides the fact that the right column is 105 and the left column is 75, and the odd numbers are 75 and the even numbers are 105, that's not what I care about. I want to know, look at the actual positions of the ones that are congruent. What pattern does it make? What just happened? Mark any angle with a dot. Do that. Any angle. I'm going to mark this one. Find its vertical angle and mark that with a dot. Copy the same dot pattern on the other parallel. So like in the other group of 4 angles. Then connect the dots. Oh my gosh, it's Harry's scar. And now you'll remember the pattern. So all of those ones that have dots, or all the ones that are blank, so if they're marked the same way, then they are congruent. Wow, we are struggling. There we go. Congruent. And then if they're, like one has a dot and one is blank, then they're supplementary. A piece of advice to you would be, before you write an equation, please determine if it is congruent or supplementary based on what kind of angle pair it is. That way you write your equation correctly and don't just assume, oh, they're equal, when actually they're supposed to be added up to 180. You got 17x minus 4 and 12 plus 15x. Tell your partner, should those be congruent or supplementary? Aubrey, how do you know they're going to be congruent? Okay, so that's one way we know. What's another way we can know they're congruent? Think about your angle pairs. What else you got?
They're corresponding.
They are corresponding. So you could use Harry Potter dots, or you could know that they're corresponding, and since they're corresponding, they are congruent. And since they're congruent, they're equal in measure. And so you get to set them equal to each other. 17x minus 4 equals 12 plus 15x. Remember, we want to isolate first, so I'm always going to move my variables to one side first by doing the inverse. So I'm going to subtract 15x since it's being added. And I get 2x minus 4 equals 12. Then I'm going to add 4 because it's being subtracted. I get 2x equals 16. And I'm going to divide by 2 because I see multiplication. And I get x equals 8. Is that what you got? Yeah, so consecutive interior angles are supplementary. And so, Jacob, what's the equation you got?
X plus 67 plus x plus 127 equals 180.
Sweet. You should combine like terms. Our x's are like terms, and our constants are like terms, so you'll add up the x plus x, and you'll also add up 67 plus 127, and solve out your equation, please.